Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our new session on the poem Daddy by Sylvia Plath. Today we will discuss this poem from some critical angles. Dear students, Daddy as a poem. Sylvia Plath's poem Daddy remains one of the most controversial modern poems that has ever been written. It is a dark, surreal, and at times very painful allegory that uses metaphors and other devices to carry the idea of a female victim finally being freed and freeing herself from her father figure. In Plath's own words, here is a poem spoken by a girl with an Electra complex. Her father died while she thought he was God. Her case is complicated by the fact that her father was also a Nazi and her mother very possibly Jewish. In the daughter, the two strains marry and paralyze each other, and she has to act out the awful little allegory once over before she is free of it. This poem Daddy was written on October 12th, 1962, a very critical period of her life. A month after Plath had been separated from her husband and moved with their two small children from their home in Devon to a flat in London, where she had to suffer financial difficulties as well. It was very, very hard for her to live in a strange land. She came from America to enjoy her married life with Ted Hughes, but he proved to be a faithless womanizer and went to another woman. 4 months later, Plath committed suicide. But she wrote some of her best poems, the poignant poems you may call them, during that turbulent period of her life. After this divorce, the separation from her husband, she went into deeper psycho period of her life. Although she was neurotic before that, attempted to suicide attempts before committing the final one. Dear students, it is very interesting to note that Sylvia Plath is called a martyr poetess in literary circles when she committed suicide after that divorce, and Ted Hughes had to face a very critical phase of his life as well. Wherever he went to literary gatherings, people murmured, murderer, murderer, and he had to face humiliation at the hands of the people. The speaker says, after 30 years, she will no longer live trapped inside the memory of her house and the memory of her father in special. Her comparison of her father to a shoe evokes the old nursery rhyme about an old woman who lived in a shoe, and the sing-song repetition and the word achoo sounds similarly childish. The you to whom the poem is addressed is the absent father here. The speaker shocks us with the assertion that she has already murdered her father, figuratively though. A bag full of God could mean he is in a body bag, or that his body is just a bag. We get an image of how big he is in her eyes via the heavy, cold corpse, so large that it spans the US and is stowed in the San Francisco Bay. and his head in the Atlantic Ocean. She used to pray to recover him, and she could mean that she wished she could have him back or heal him. This German expression is a sigh of angry, impatient familiarity. Oh, Hugh Plath's father was a German immigrant. We know that. The repetition of wars gives us the sense that there have been and of many wars and of landscapes being repetitively flattened by war. The speaker does not know precisely where her father came from. Put your foot, your root, and that she had no rapport with him. Trying to talk to her father was dangerous and painful experience, like sticking your tongue in a trap. Each is the German word for I, and here she is reduced to stammering in fear and confusion. While trying to speak German, makes her feel like she is trapped on a train, headed towards the death camp, the concentration camp. We see the speaker's mental and emotional conversion here and how she associates her fear and terror of her father with the struggle of the Jewish people against the Nazis, the cruelty, the death, the bloodshed they had to face. Dear students, as readers, we have to join the speaker on that train, winding through Europe, the white snow, and the clear beer contrast starkly to the dark deeds being inflicted by Nazis in the name of racial purity. The speaker is consciously, deliberately choosing sides with the weak Jewish people, trying to highlight the suppression, the bloodshed, the cruelty, the terror, the horror they had faced as a race in the hands of the strong suppressors. As we have gone through the text itself, therefore we are now very much familiar with different phrases and phases and words and images used therein. Luftwaffe is the German Air Force. Gobbledygook is another childlike word that conveys her disdain for the German language, and it is a conversion of gobbledygook. She calls herself a Jew and her father a Nazi killer. A Panzer man is one who drives a tank. These are the basic images she has used to highlight different phases of cruelty inflicted upon the Jews. And again, his Nazism blocks the sun. It is so huge. Why do women love fascists? Is it bitter sarcasm in the poem? Or it is a reality or truth? Perhaps she is saying that in relationships, women are dominated by men. Rather, you may say that men are always dominant in every matter of life. In order to love a man, you must be a masochistic type of female. Then we find her calling her father a devil. The speaker describes a photograph of her father. He broke her heart. He died when she was 8 years old. And she tried to commit suicide at 10 and 20 to get back like earlier when she tried to recover him. The repetition here emphasizes her futile desperation, frustration of the soul. She is so desperate to be with him that even his bones will be sufficient for her to reunite with the father figure. She figuratively tries to join him in his grave by killing herself, committing suicide. But they save him. So she changes her tactic and makes an effigy of him, a model, and tortures it. Just as the hint is there, the screws, the stake and screws. She kills that effigy, that model, that voodoo doll of her father with torture. She makes a man in her father's image. It is the wedding ceremony, the wedding to the wedded life to Ted Hughes, a sadist, and marries him. So now she no longer needs her father. She cuts off communication with him, the dead here, indeed. Although she didn't literally kill anyone, the speaker feels as though she has killed both her father and her husband, a parasite who drank my blood for 7 years. Perhaps she means simply that they are dead to her now. Plaid was married to Ted Hughes for about 7 years. Then she tells her dead father to lie back in his grave. She is also relieved of the pain and suffering she had to face through her life, and now she releases the dead corpse of her father from her memory. She says she has done with him forever. Maybe she has exorcised or mentally killed him properly this time. Dear students, as we have seen in another attempt of ours to look at the poem with some critical perspectives, we know that Daddy as a poem is an attempt to combine the personal with the mythical. It is surely unsettling, a weird nursery rhyme of the divided self, a controlled blast aimed at a father and a husband. Since the two conflate in the 14th stanza, we know very well. A very confusing stanza indeed. The poem expresses Plaid's terror and pain lyrically and hauntingly. It combines light echoes of a Mother Goose nursery rhyme with much darker resonances of World War II in it. The father is seen as a black shoe, a bag full of gold, a cold marble statue, a Nazi, a swastika, a fascist, a sadistic brute, and a vampire, the devil, and a bastard. The girl, narrator, speaker of the poem, is trapped in her idolization of this man. She is a victim trapped in that black tomb-like shoe, in the sack that holds the father's bones, and in a sense, in the train as it chugs along to Auschwitz. Daddy is full of disturbing imagery, surely, and that is why some critics have called Daddy the Guernica of modern poetry, as we discussed in our previous discussion. Dear students, then the poem has got the theme of Electra complex in it, as elaborated by Sylvia Plath herself. The two famous psychologists, Freud and Jung, have explained this extra complex in their Electra complex in their own way, taking the lead from the famous Greek play Oedipus Rex and Oedipus the father and etc. You know, Oedipus has got many layers of tragic dramas we find in history. Taking lead from that Oedipus in general, these two psychologists have explained this Electra complex concept. You may go through this portion of the question yourself and read it by stopping this slide here yourself, please. Dear students, this concept of Electra complex type of presentation in this poem, the theme surely brought to light in the 14th and 15th stanzas in the later part of the poem. Further explanation has been given in this section of the lecture. Please go through it, stopping it right here, reading yourself, and it is very clear and the idea will be clear to your mind, please. The Trial of H-Man. Surely the poem is about the general suppression of humanity at large by the forces of suppression in shape of Hitler's army, who inflicted cruelties, barbarism, savagery on Jewish people. And this trial of H-Man has been hinted in the poem. Sylvia Plath undoubtedly knew about the final solution of the Nazis in World War II. You know very well that Hitler himself committed suicide uh, in a bunker after his retreat in the Second World War. And after that, his main man, H-Man, the general who was the head of the forces, the Nazi forces, the fascist forces, was imprisoned and put to trial. The trial of Adolf H-Man lasted from April 11, 1961 to December 15, 1961 and was shown on television live, allowing the whole world to witness the horrors of the Holocaust. Plath wrote Daddy the following year, in 1962. As a leading instigator of death in the concentration camp gas chambers, the SS Lieutenant Colonel H-Man became notorious as the desk murderer in the whole world. He was found guilty by trial, the International Court of Justice, that is, in Jerusalem, Israel, and sentenced to be hanged at last. Dear students, as we have already discussed in the beginning portion, in the early portion of this poem, that the Holocaust, the delicate theme of Holocaust has been highlighted by the poet in this poem. As the poem progresses, the narrator identifies herself with the plight of the Jews during the Nazi regime in Germany. There are many direct references to the Holocaust in the poem. Dear students, the poetess uses the nightmarish scenario of the Holocaust as a metaphor for the daughter's relationship with the German father. Does tap into historical depth and meaning. The poem is ironically depersonalized and taken beyond mere confession poem into an archetypal father-daughter pathos. Holocaust is a very delicate topic, and in Europe and surroundings, it is very difficult to speak openly about this Holocaust. But Sylvia Plath has risked all her career by introducing the Holocaust theme into the poem. Only her astute use of rhythm, rhyme, and lyric allows her to get away with this blood-curdling, terror-stricken type of Holocaust theme. Dear students, then from a technical point of view, the poem has 16 stanzas, each with 5 lines, making a total of almost 80 lines, exactly rather 80 lines. The meter is roughly tetrameter, 4 beats, but also uses pentameter with a mix of stresses here and there. 37 lines are end-stopped, and enjambments are used frequently in the poem. Metaphors, similes, symbols are all present in the poem as devices, as are half rhymes, alliterations, and assonances. The father is compared to a black shoe, a bag full of God, a giant, cold marble statue, a Nazi, a swastika, a fascist, a sadist, a devil, a vampire, through different images, metaphors, and similes. The speaker uses child language, that is baby talk, to describe truly dark and painful feelings. She calls him daddy. She calls a sneeze achu, gobbledygoo. She gets tongue-tied and stammery, itch, and uses sing-song repetitions. Rather, the juxtaposition of innocence and pain emphasizes both the childish talk and the adult pain felt by the poetess. And then again, dear students, there is also the howling, mournful shoo sound of a steam engine train throughout the poem. You do not do, achoo, black shoe, glue, you do, I do, shoe, to, skew, screw, through, gobbledygoo, Jew, blue. This repeated ooh sound gives the poem momentum, just like a train on momentum, energy, and conjures up the image of a train shuffling its way to the final destination, which in this case is a Nazi death camp. That is the death train journey we are forced to accompany with the poetess. And dear students, this poem is full of surreal imagery and allusions, interspersed with scenes from the poet's childhood and a kind of dark cinematic language that borrows from nursery rhyme and song lyric tradition. Every so often, German is used, reflecting the fact that Pla's father, Otto, was from Germany and must have spoken in this language to Sylvia in her childhood. She takes these words from her childhood memory, rather. There is little doubt that Sylvia Plath was trying to exorcise the spirits of both her father and her ex-husband, Ted Hughes, in this very poem. At first, her marriage had been euphoric, but after the birth of her two children, life became much harder. News that Hughes was having an affair with Ossia Wevell, a dark-haired young lady they met in London, and of Wevell's pregnancy by Hughes could have been the tipping point for the sensitive and manic poet. She took her own life on February 11th, 1962, 3, a little more than a year after her uh, poem, Daddy. Although we can't say with certainty that the speaker is Plath herself, however, Daddy is a quintessential example of confessional poetry, which is very emotional and autobiographical in nature and tone. This confessional, subjective style of writing became popular in the late 50s to early 60s, rather expands itself to the 70s as well. Coming on to conclude our today's discussion on this critical review of the poem Daddy. Dear students, we may say that this poem Daddy is a poem that Sylvia Plath had to write. It is the expression she had to express. It is a successful poem because you catch glimpses of her real life bubbling up through metaphors and allegory. But she never makes it fully confessional poem. Some critics say that this poem is nothing but a selfish, immature outburst and a revenge poem, apparently. And it looks so, it most certainly isn't. However, in that fashion, we cannot call it an immature outburst of a person or a revenge poem against her father. You have to have courage to express such pain and suffering in this manner. And you could say that courage is a sign of great maturity itself. Rather, although it is neurotic, it is psychic, but yet it is great courage and maturity that she takes a giant leap, getting out of the shackles of cultural civilizational bondages to go beyond all traditions, all values, and expressing the most private feelings of ours to public through the very verses of our poem. When read through as a whole, Daddy stops and starts. Spluttereth and shunts, travels over rough ground, and screeches round corners. At one time, you are above the whole of the USA, the whole of the world, rather, the next in some sort of nightmare, tunnel, or cinema, where they are showing a life story of your own beaten ire that is hatred. So, Daddy is both simple and complicated poem on the whole. A bloody nursery rhyme from Voodoo land, land of mystery, Africa. A dark lyrical train of thought exploring what is still a taboo subject, the Holocaust. Dear students, thank you very much for being with me in this very conversation of ours on the topic of the critical review of the poem Daddy. Till our next meeting, it is Allah Hafiz and goodbye from my side. Thank you very much again. See you soon. Goodbye.